Hello, hello, JJ DiGeronimo here, and we have another awesome episode of Together We Seek. As you know, I'm always seeking. I'm looking for new strategies. I'm looking for healers and light workers that have utilized their path to really tap into their knowing and their gifts. And I am super excited to introduce you to Jenn Cohen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
This is so exciting. I was so excited for this conversation because I love the fact that you've been able to bridge spirituality into corporate. And we're going to talk about your sixth sense and how that is your greatest asset at work. But before we do, maybe we should just talk a little bit about sixth sense. What is your sixth sense?
Sure. Yeah, I love this question because so many people have so many ideas of what their sixth sense is, and coming from a career in the entertainment space for 27 years, people will say, "I see dead people," and reference that very quickly, and I'm like, "That's actually not it. It's a great movie, but that's not what it is." So, intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without conscious reasoning. That's like the technical. It comes from the Latin root, which the word is intuere, which means to consider from in or to look from within. And so our sixth sense, I actually like to say it's our first sense. It's the first sense that we have when we come into this world, and it transcends language. It transcends culture. It transcends everything that we've kind of learned. It's a knowing. It's a truth.
I love that. And I almost went there with I see dead people, but I'm glad you did. Love that. So is what everybody has, or is it learned? Like when you talk to people, like do we all have this sixth sense or innate knowing?
Yeah, we all have it. Men even have it. A lot of times I'll talk to women and they'll say, "But do women just have it?" I'm like, "Women have it. Women absolutely have it, but men do have it as well." And I think culturally it's a little bit more difficult for men to tap into, and that's a shame. But when they do, it's present and it's there. And I really do believe it's our first sense. It's what we are born with. It's how we know to cry. It's how we know our mother, without really being able to see, and it's absolutely present for us. And the cool thing about intuition is it's present at every moment. It's present in the now, and it's not really our job to hunt down intuition. It's our responsibility to get to a place to receive it, and that's the key to finding it. Is to be able to have tools and tips to practice and to receive it, something that is our innate part of ourselves and that everybody has access to.
It's so beautiful. And I think it's a relief to people to really realize, like, okay, you have it. You just have to figure out how to find it, how to discover it, how to get into it. And, that's not always easy for people. My friend Veronica talks about like the 4 Ds, right? Disease, death, others. And she's like, things happen to people. So was your intuition always on the forefront for you?
So I would say from a very young age, I was always very curious, and that is a part of our intuition. That's the part of the brain that our intuition lives in. It's the right hemisphere, and I would, it wasn't polite to stare, but I would just stare at people and just like be fascinated by their conversations and fascinated by the way that they move and the way that they operate. And I could um, gained so much insight from the nonverbal and the verbal, but it was more energy that I was tapping into. And, I mean, there would be times where, my parents would just be like, you cannot stare. And I'm like, I know, and it's so fascinating. So that was always as a child, and I could listen. I could listen really well, where which turned out fine because as we know, people like to talk and they want to be heard, and I was fine doing that. So it benefited me in that sense, just in terms of people and social. um, and I wasn't that comfortable talking about what I was picking up. It was just kind of like, okay, she's polite, she's listening. And then I had a profound experience. My dad passed when I was at the age of 20, and it was a sudden passing. And the night of his funeral, he came to me. I was on his side of the bed, just, kind of distraught. And it was a very dark room, no lights were on. And I was just kind of crying out to God and just saying, why? And the bedside light, which was off, flashed on and off and on and off. And I said, Daddy, is that you? Flashed on and off and on and off. And what that allowed me was to know that there was something out, there was something spiritual, there was something beyond, there was something that I could tap into. And my dad, took that full force and was able to provide me with signs, which we will get into a little bit more later on signs, I think. But it was a very comforting feeling. And again, being 20 and going through the grieving process, I got really stuck on anger and all the milestones that he wouldn't be there for physically. And I, in my anger, just made a pact with him. I said, okay, if you left, this earth and you're not going to be here for me, I'm going to give you my profession and you're going to always take care of me in that way. You're going to be my security there since you're not here. You're going to take care of me like that. And what that did is it allowed me to almost get out of my head in that way and pass along, a job for him, which he took very readily. He's like, absolutely, I'll do this. And it allowed me to free up space to hone my intuition and to really trust that this was all going to work out in the way that it was supposed to. And I had the most loving person orchestrating it for me.
So much emotion. I mean, I went through the whole wave of emotion with you there. That's, losing any loved one, it's just, you can't even put it into words, but getting to a point where you have figured out how to work in conjunction, even though the physical is not here, is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I
Mm.
always say my relationship with him is so much more rewarding and deeper than I ever could have had on this physical earth.
That's reassuring. That's reassuring. My dad's going to be crossing over soon, and I feel like you just gave me sort of a message and just something that we could work on together. We didn't have a lot of that luxury in this physical plane, but that is a great advice is when loved ones have crossed over, like figuring out a way to work with them on something that's important to you and trusting that they've got your back.
Oh, they want to. I mean, he's just like, "Yes, I will do this. This is no sweat for me. I got you." I mean,
Mm.
and he would continually show up with signs telling me that he's got me.
And you've had a crazy, amazing career. I mean,
Yeah.
to get to the executive levels in the entertainment business, I mean, that is no easy feat. And you have used your intuition and your knowing and some of your other skill sets that might not be obviously apparent to people you're working with in the corporate setting, which is, I think, is just fascinating. Like, how did you even know to do that? And how has it benefited you?
Um, it's funny. It was really me, like just me being me. And I was in tune enough where when I would come up across an obstacle or a challenge that, was company policy or, this was just how they did it, I could feel very quickly, okay, I might have to play the game on this, but I don't need to jump in with this. And those are two very different things. It's kind of like I can go see a movie and be in the audience and watch what's happening, and I'm still a participant in that experience. I'm watching it. I can take whatever I want from the messaging there, but I don't need to jump on the screen and become an actor in that movie. I don't need to, be part of that in that way. I'm still part of it in the theater, but I've distanced myself where I can see, okay, this is something that needs to be done policy wise, but I get the choice of how I'm going to interact with that. And
I love that.
thank you.
I love that. It gives space, it gives freedom. Uh, but I think when I think of corporate, I spent most of my first 20 years in high tech in Silicon Valley, so it was incredibly intense. And,
Yes.
I sort of talk a lot about how women leave their knowing at the door because they really have to work inside this masculine structure, masculine energy. And, pulling some of that feminine through the door with you into those roles is not always easy because we often have so many fears and uncertainties and self-doubt. So, like, how do you coach? Because I know you coach a lot of people now. How do
Mhm.
you coach them to have the confidence to trust?
Yeah. So, what you just said, it's so important because in the entertainment space, as I know, is in the tech space, the ego is really the king, and also in the spaces that we just talked about, it's shaping culture. It's shaping, on a grand level how culture is accepted, how we're accepted culturally. And so when you're able to be a voice, especially I'll just say for women, um, and you have reached a level that you've been promoted to, or that is looked at as, you've made it. Um, there's an honesty there that is also part of the responsibility of being that leader. And so the honesty is, yeah, there were times where I made some poor choices. And then I could look back at those choices and rectify them. And that is what the feminine for me always return to, because there would be bad behavior and people would double down on it and triple down on it, and it would become kind of their personality. Whereas, of course, we're all going to mess up. We're not perfect. But when I could identify that, oh, you know what, I'm acting really out of character there. I could feel it in my body. I could listen to my intuition. I could listen to my divine feminine, and I could say, that is not how I want to show up. And what I could do then is that I could pivot from the action that caused me to do that. So let's say that there was a scenario and I behaved in a way that I didn't personally like. I could go back and revisit that conversation. It doesn't mean that I'm getting through to that person. It's just basically, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to come back to my integrity. I'm going to come back to my truth. I'm going to come back to where I feel good. And then what I would do is that I would find the places in my work that made me light up, that made me feel so good. And they might not necessarily have been the highlights of my job description, but they were the parts of my job where I could get filled up. And that's where I started making the most significant changes in the organization. And it wasn't based on what the organization thought that these were going to be the points to make change. But when I listened to my intuition, and when, again, I never I didn't shun my work that I needed to do, but where my attention and my energy would go would be to where I really lit up. And the magical thing that happened is that the places that I would put that energy that lit me up became the revenue generators, became the priorities. It became where the company had no choice but to look to where that upward mobility was happening and saying, oh, you know what? There is a lot there. There's a lot of revenue there. There's a lot of gain there. And that was, like you said, staying true to myself. Again, playing by their rules in a sense. Obviously, you have to do that if you're in corporate. But what people aren't that privy to and don't really put much value in is that you're in that place for a reason. I was not hired to do PowerPoints. My PowerPoint, my PowerPoint presentations are lacking. It is my ability to communicate with people, to connect with people. And when I owned that and listened to my intuitive self of where it was guiding me within the organization that I was in and I was supposed to be in, that's where the magic happened.
I love that. So let me break that down. So, just what I heard you say was basically a lot of these corporations are led by the ego. Do it, get it done, get there, whatever it takes. And what you learned is to really follow what inspired you, what excited you. And so you would get the stuff done, you had to get done, but then you found yourself really leaning into things that you felt good about, that were inspiring to you, that gave you additional energy and momentum. And over time, those are the things that actually made a difference to the bottom line.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
really powerful. And I think it gives people permission to use more intuitive strategies to get their job done or find the corner in their job that can illuminate and energize other aspects of their work.
exactly. I was just talking with a client and she works within a university and
Mm.
she wasn't super happy in the department that she was in. And we started talking about departments within the university. And there was a department in the university that lit her up and we delved deeper and deeper into that. And again, the left, hemisphere will try and say, well, I can't do that because it's outside of my scope. I'm going to get in trouble and da 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 da. And let me tell you, you're not. Like you're not going to. If you're following your intuition, like that is just your brain trying to keep you small, keep you in line, keep you safe. And I put that in quotes. But intuition has no reason to keep you protected. It's not here for smallness. And what we found out is that she's got two really good friends that are running that department that like she can go and she's saying, but it doesn't fit within what I do. It doesn't matter. Ask for their syllabus. Ask, if you could sit in on a class. Ask if you can, talk to them offline. Ask. There might be some volunteer work. And she was just like, oh my gosh. And you know what? They're actually, as we were talking about this, they're actually looking to hire. And it's like, okay, but it wasn't until you had that permission to explore and get curious and say, why does this light me up? That she was able to say, oh, well, that actually might be a good avenue.
I love that. I love that. And I talk a lot about that in my journey too, is like really finding ways to uncover your next step, right? And a lot of it comes down to your frequency. How do you raise your frequency? And then how does that illuminate your path forward? And I think this gives really practical tips to people that are looking to kind of say, okay, I don't want to leave, but I want to do something different. Or how do I use my existing role to create a launching pad for something that's important to me? So if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, this all sounds great, but like, how do I start? Like, how do I know if I'm using my intuition? How do I know if I'm seeing signs or hearing things? And how do I know if I'm stifling my inner voice? Like, how do I get started?
Sure. The first thing is awareness. So the fact that you're listening to this and that it's resonating with you, you're tapped in. So that's the first thing. So give yourself a pat on the back, say, put your hand on your heart and say, okay, this is the first step. It's awareness that we have it, that we can tap into it at any time. And that then I would say the next step is really ingesting and the knowledge that intuition can only happen in the present moment. If you are thinking in the future, worrying about the future, you're out of your intuition. If you're ruminating on the past, you are definitely out of your intuitive self. And so, practices that get you into intuition, here's the kicker: it's things that you love to do. It's joyful, um, experiences that get you into the present moment. I mean, think about when for me, it's taking hikes in nature, it's being by the ocean, and I'll find myself saying, "Oh my God, is this so beautiful?" That is the time that you can tune in. That is the time that you can take a deep breath, maybe close your eyes, and just kind of feel into your intuitive self. And that's the feeling that you'll come back to time and time again. And there are many, many different practices that you can take, but those are the beginning steps. Those are the peaceful feelings. And I'll tell you, after my time in corporate, those feelings, they come to me much quicker now. They come to me, in a way where I can know immediately when I'm outside of myself. And those practices are available while you're working. They're available when you're commuting home. They're available when you're with family. They're available when you are about to drift off to sleep and your brain comes online and is like, oh my God, I've got to scare you about all the things that are about to happen to you, but they're available. And I would just say that those are the two tips just to start with.
Mm, that's so beautiful. I love that. I love that. It makes me feel like, just getting this message out to a wider audience, reminding them that this is a skill set that they may or may not be using or not using to the fullest, that there are easy ways to get back into it. And being in the present moment has been my gift too. And I've really done that through gratitude. Like, I'm grateful I have gas and I'm grateful I can have this meal. And every minute I'm going through the day, I'm like having gratitude for the minute I'm in, not only to raise my frequency, but to be in the present moment. You have to be in the moment to have gratitude for the moment. So that's been my
Absolutely.
trick.
Absolutely. The shower is also another great place. I could have
Yeah.
7 arguments in the shower, before I even, left for the day. And that gratitude tip is, I'm grateful for this warm water. I'm grateful for the soap. I'm grateful for, the ability to cleanse my body. But exactly what you just said, and catching your ruminating mind, and just
Mm,
coming back to that gratitude in that present moment. It's a beautiful tool.
I totally agree. Well, all of Jen's links are below. You can connect with her on Instagram, check out her work on her website, connect with her on LinkedIn, which is just amazing to see your journey. Is there anything you want to share? Anything that's up and coming for you that people can jump into?
Yeah, I just launched a membership program. And so if you're looking for support on your intuitive journey, there's 3 tiers there. One for kind of every step of the way, and wherever you're at with your intuition and your journey there. And there's tools, tips, there's access to myself, and there's access one-on-one and through email, so that I can answer any questions anytime along the way.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful, Jen. Thank you so much for joining Together We Seek. I love highlighting the work of many that are empowering us on the planet to live in a higher frequency, to tap into the gifts that we already have so that we can illuminate the path for the work that we're here to do. And interviewing you and having you part of Together We Seek is so fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So with that, we'll see you again here next time. Thank you for joining us.